Have you ever wondered how Scotland, a proud ancient kingdom with its own laws, language and identity, ended up joining hands with England to form what we now call Great Britain? It wasn't a quick decision, it wasn't a love story, and it definitely wasn't peaceful at first. This is a tale of wars, politics, broken promises, secret deals, and a country nearly bankrupt. It's the story of how Scotland, a nation with a long and proud past, became part of a union that would go on to build one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. But the path to union wasn't just about kings and queens. It was also about money, religion, power, and survival. So today, let's go back in time, to the Highlands and Lowlands, to castles and parliaments, to brave hearts and broken dreams, and uncover the real reason why Scotland joined Great Britain. Because behind the flags and treaties lies a story that shaped history and still sparks debate to this very day. Now let's delve right in. Before the Union, Scotland was its own country, a kingdom with a long, rich history. It had its own monarch, parliament, and legal system. Its people spoke different languages, Gaelic in the Highlands, Scots in the Lowlands. Its culture was distinct from England's. And although the two countries shared the same island, they didn't always get along. In fact, for centuries, Scotland and England were more often enemies than friends. They fought bloody wars, like the wars of Scottish independence in the late 1200s and early 1300s. That's where famous figures like William Wallace and Robert the Bruce made their names. Scotland also had close ties with France, a relationship known as the Old Alliance. This bond with France often put Scotland at odds with England, especially when England and France went to war. So by the late 1600s, Scotland was an independent nation, proud but fragile. Its economy was weaker than England's. It had suffered from political instability, failed harvests, and was still recovering from decades of struggle. The Scottish people were divided between those who wanted to stay free and those who saw benefits in working more closely with England. But something big was about to happen, something that would push Scotland to the edge and into the arms of its southern neighbour. Curious to know what that was? Let's delve deeper to find out. In 1603, a major turning point happened. England's Queen Elizabeth I died without a child. That meant the throne passed to her closest relative, King James VI of Scotland. He became King James I of England too. One man, two crowns. This moment is known as the Union of the Crowns. But here's the key part. Scotland and England were still two separate countries. They just had the same king. They didn't share a parliament, they didn't share laws, and they certainly didn't always share the same goals. King James wanted a full political union between the two kingdoms, but both sides resisted. There was too much mistrust, and neither country wanted to lose control of its identity. Still, the shared monarchy made things complicated. Decisions in one kingdom affected the other. And over the next 100 years, that relationship grew tighter, but also more tense. Even though the same monarch sat on both thrones, England and Scotland were still walking their own separate paths. But not for long. Something was about to happen in Scotland that would change everything. Let's keep digging to find out what it was. If there's one moment that pushed Scotland toward union, it was the Darien Scheme. In the 1690s, Scotland tried to compete on the global stage. They wanted to set up a trading colony, just like the English and Spanish had done. The place they picked was a swampy, mosquito-filled part of Panama called Darien. Thousands of Scots invested in the project. Some gave all their savings. The Scottish government even backed it. They believed this colony would make Scotland rich and powerful, but the dream quickly turned into a nightmare. The climate was harsh. Many settlers died from disease, supplies ran out, and worst of all, England refused to help. English merchants were banned from supporting the colony because England didn't want to upset Spain, who also claimed that land. Within 2 years, the colony failed. Hundreds of people died. Scotland lost nearly half its money. The economy collapsed. This disaster shook the country. Many Scots felt betrayed by England. Others blamed their own leaders. But one thing became clear: Scotland couldn't survive on its own. It needed help, and that help, many believed, could only come through union. The Darien disaster didn't just destroy a colony, it destroyed confidence in independence. Now many Scots were desperate, and England saw an opportunity. Now let's come back to England and look at what was happening on their side. While Scotland was dealing with economic ruin, England had its own worries. The biggest fear was that Scotland might side with England's enemies, like France or Catholic powers in Europe. This was especially dangerous because of what happened in 1688. That year, England had a revolution, the Glorious Revolution. They removed King James II, a Catholic, and replaced him with Protestant rulers, William and Mary. But many Scots, especially Highlanders, still supported James and his heirs. These supporters were called Jacobites. England feared that if war broke out again, Scotland might help bring back a Catholic king. So England wanted to make sure Scotland stayed loyal. And the best way to do that was to join both countries under one government, with one set of laws and one set of interests. Also, from a business point of view, England wanted full control of trade within the British Isles. A united kingdom would mean no tariffs, no competition, and stronger trade laws. So while Scotland was desperate to recover from financial disaster, England was eager to lock down its northern neighbour. The time for negotiation had come. In 1707, after years of back and forth, the Act of Union was passed. This was the official agreement that united the Kingdom of Scotland and the Kingdom of England into one country, the Kingdom of Great Britain. What did this mean, you may ask? It meant that first, the Scottish and English parliaments were joined into one, the Parliament of Great Britain, based in London. Second, Scotland kept its own legal and educational systems. Third, Scots gained access to English colonial markets and trade routes. And lastly, Scotland was given compensation for the Darien disaster, around $398,000, known as the equivalent. But the way this union happened still causes debate today. Many Scottish nobles were offered titles, money, and favours in exchange for their support. Some say they sold out the country. Protesters accused them of betraying Scotland. Riots broke out in Edinburgh and other cities. Ordinary Scots didn't have a vote. The decision was made by the elite, and it left many feeling angry and powerless. But the deal went through, and on May 1st, 1707, the Union officially began. One crown, one flag, one parliament. Great Britain was born, but not everyone celebrated. Even after the Union, many Scots were unhappy. Some had never wanted the merger. Others felt Scotland had lost its identity and freedom. And the biggest group of all, the Jacobites, were furious. They wanted to bring back the old royal family, the Catholic Stuarts. And they believed the Union was part of a bigger plan to wipe out Scottish culture. So they rebelled. The first Jacobite rising came in 1715, led by the Earl of Mar. However, it failed. But the most famous rebellion came in 1745, led by Charles Edward Stuart, also known as Bonnie Prince Charlie. He marched from the Highlands into England with thousands of men. For a while, it looked like they might succeed, but in 1746, at the Battle of Culloden, the Jacobite dream was crushed. British forces, made up of English and loyal Scots, defeated the rebels in just 1 hour. What followed was brutal. Highland culture was targeted, tartan was banned, clans were broken, leaders were executed. The British government wanted to make sure this never happened again. And while the military defeat ended the Jacobite threat, the cultural wounds ran deep. The Union had been signed in law, but not in spirit. Despite the anger and rebellion, Scotland began to change. Economically, the Union brought benefits. Scottish traders now had access to global markets. Glasgow grew rich from tobacco and sugar. Edinburgh became a centre for learning and philosophy. This period, called the Scottish Enlightenment, saw thinkers like David Hume and Adam Smith rise to fame. Scottish doctors, scientists, and engineers helped fuel the Industrial Revolution. Politically, Scots had less power than before, but in business, education, and culture, they were thriving. Scotland kept its church, its schools, and its legal system, and in many ways it held on to its national identity. Still, the question of independence never fully disappeared. Even centuries later, many Scots felt the union was forced, not chosen. In 2014, Scotland held a referendum on whether to leave the United Kingdom. It was close, but 55% voted to stay. The debate continues to this day. So how did Scotland join Great Britain? As we've already seen, the union happened not through war, but through crisis, desperation, and strategy. Scotland was pushed by economic collapse. England was pulled by fears of rebellion and foreign threats. Together, they signed a union that still defines politics in the UK today. The story isn't black and white. Some saw it as betrayal, others saw it as survival. But one thing is certain, it changed both nations forever. Scotland lost some power, but gained global opportunity. England gained security, but also inherited new tensions. And even today, more than 300 years later, the story of that union still shapes headlines, votes, and emotions across the British Isles. It wasn't just a deal between kings and politicians. It was a moment that reshaped history. So what do you think? Was the union between Scotland and England a smart move or a historic mistake? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that history textbooks leave out. Hit the bell icon so you never miss our next episode. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.